Hi, I'm Mark Fletcher, ENP. The following podcast is an audio version of my latest blog, The Quest for 911 Excellence. Throughout our lives, we form impressions, opinions, and ideas. At a very early age, my father ingrained in me the postulation that any job worth doing was worth doing the best of your ability. Now, granted, as the typical pig-headed, know-it-all teenager at the time, I never realized that those very thoughts and words would form who I was going to be and are the core tenets of what I believe in today. Looking back, public safety has always been a large part of my life. Since my teenage years as a first responder in high school on my local ambulance squad, then as an EMT, to my job as a police dispatcher and special officer, and beyond. I always remained close to that industry and was completely gobsmacked by the lack of tech and automation deployed to solve what really were some very simple problems. Now, throughout my IT career, I kept gravitating back to these inefficiencies, questioning the proprietary, siloed approach that seemed to be the norm rather than the exception. Back in the 80s as a police dispatcher, I used to sit back and rack my brain during the midnight shifts, trying to comprehend why technology couldn't provide me with the information that I needed to do my job better. As a telephone PBX installer, I'd always recognized the need for universal access to 911, and I worked out the appropriate programming so that access codes were never required for emergency calls. While this was a mystery to most, it really was a simple task. But getting the location data to the PSAP was still a mystery to me. Back then, I had no idea how little information was actually being provided. It had never crossed my mind how it got from point A to point B. Since its humble establishment in 1968, the task for 911 was always very simple. Make a 911 call reach the local 911 center, and do that from any phone. It wasn't until a decade and a half later in the 80s where location requirements started to be introduced. And with that, the deployment of enhanced or E911. Initially, location was provided and was the onus of the telephone companies. After all, they knew where each line was installed and they knew the telephone number that they assigned to them. And it was here where the mission of 911 initially got led astray. You see, as technology progressed and cellular was developed, the devices became mobile, and the interrelation of a telephone number and the location of the caller was no longer a valid assumption. Years later, in the enterprise, with the widespread deployment of voice-over IP technology, this caused what had been a gradual drift into the next lane to become a hard right. While at the same time, 911 continued straight and true, and this led to a huge dichotomy between the requirements of the mission and the network capabilities to deliver the solution. Now, out of this environment grew an opportunity to innovate. However, not every company remains innovative, especially when new technology is required and corporate profits are on the line. And it's for this reason alone that it's absolutely imperative that enterprise IT administrators understand or assign someone to understand public safety requirements in voice technology to solve the problem. Without that internal knowledge, even the best staff runs the risk of being hoodwinked by an excellent magic show put on by a salesperson. That not only creates a false sense of security, but it siphons valuable financial resources out of budgets in the name of public safety. Now, some 45 years after my father tried to teach me that valuable life lesson, and a good decade after his time here was over, I'm still applying that every day. I've stayed true to my mission of improving the most functional and feature-rich solution for enterprise public safety that's physically possible. While others in the industry try to lay claim to a lot of the concepts that I developed and introduced, they know quite well that they did nothing but follow in my footsteps. Now, rather than trying to sell my solution, I believe in educating the masses. I learn from my customers. I understand what they need to deliver during an emergency. And where I don't create, I think that I inspire others to do so. And this is why my relationship with companies like Rapid SOS have existed since the beginning of that company. And this is why my friends at Rapid Deploy and 911 Secure continue down their paths. And this is where the technology that I offer through 911 Inform can easily augment any other solution on the market or replace it in its entirety. It's also why our solution seamlessly integrates into one of the most popular PBX provider platforms, yet remains open and interoperable with any other vendor that chooses to consume my services. One of the things that impresses me most about 911 Inform, and the reason that I work here, is that they share my lofty goals and requirements for a sustainable product. I believe that this is one of the main reasons that we were lucky enough to win the Frost & Sullivan 2020 North America New Product Innovation Award for the Enterprise Safety Solution market. And the management team at 911 Inform has committed to make that report available to the general masses at no cost, as normally there's a fee. Be sure to check out the written version of this blog. In there you'll find a link where you can download a copy. That wraps up this audio podcast of my latest blog, The Quest for 911 Excellence. I'm Mark Fletcher, and I'm the Vice President of Public Safety Solutions at 911 Inform, LLC. Check us out on the web at www.911inform.com. Follow me on Twitter at Fletch911, and be sure to check out the rest of my blogs at www.fletch.tv. Stay safe, and we'll catch you next time.